When Lieutenant Kira Miles, Human Scout Division, failed to check in after a standard recon loop through Sector X-19 Beta, no one panicked. Yet, communication blackouts were common in that stretch of the Perseus Veil, bad data storms, gravity slips, space krokens chewing on relays. Regular Tuesday stuff. But when she didn't return within the 48-hour dead zone margin, the Earth Systems Alliance sent the usual polite ping to the Zorlax Dominion, who claimed governance over the region. "We respectfully inquire about the status of Scout Miles," read the message. Zorlaxian response: "No human scout exists within our purview. Your system error. Please recalibrate your devices. Thank you for your compliance." Earth read that twice, ran it through 3 sarcasm detectors, and still came up with a 97% likelihood that someone in the Zorlax bureaucracy just smirked. Unfortunately for the Dominion, Earth had evolved past passive-aggressive emails, mostly because humanity had long since realized no one in the galaxy respected those. So Earth's next message was short. "Return the scout, or we'll assume you're declaring war." The Zorlax Dominion, a civilization so orderly they held national elections via synchronized blinking, failed to process the threat in any meaningful way. Their reply: "We do not negotiate under misinterpretations. War requires a formal 39-step declaration procedure. You have not followed it. Please consult subsection B of our Intergalactic Conduct Manual." Earth, in a show of remarkable restraint, waited a full 2 hours before launching the ESV Bastard's Gambit, a dreadnought the size of Manhattan and shaped like someone had given a shark railguns. Its mission was unclear to most, except to the Earth brass who had scribbled "Find Scout." "Scare aliens. Break stuff" on the mission brief in red marker. Inside the command deck of the Bastard's Gambit, Admiral Arya Knox leaned on her elbow and glared at the holomap. "She's not dead," Knox said, chewing a cinnamon toothpick. "She's Kira Miles. She once survived 2 weeks in a xenovore mating pit by teaching them interpretive dance. We are not leaving her behind." "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Singh, "Zorlax denies they have her." "And I deny gravity. That's not how reality works," Knox snapped. "Load tactical subroutines and initiate diplomatic smash and grab." Somewhere deep in Zorlax space, Scout Lieutenant Kira Miles was very much alive. Currently in a holding cell made entirely of translucent gel, suspended like a fly in intergalactic amber, being questioned by a Zorlax inquisitor whose tone suggested he'd once gotten angry at a book for being out of alphabetical order. "You violated a restricted nebula," hissed the inquisitor, pacing in neat 90-degree angles. "You failed to file a Form Delta 3. That region is under strict archival quarantine pending a historical integrity audit." "I was scouting," Kira replied, breathing through a broken nose in deep annoyance. Like observing, gathering info, not licking your archives or whatever." "You drifted within 11 kilometers of the conical sanctum of Yark. That's a Class 7 prohibited angle." "Buddy, where I'm from, we don't even prohibit public urination unless you're doing it on a child or a monument. And even then, it's case by case." The Inquisitor flinched. Zorlaxians were notoriously uncomfortable with ambiguity, and Kira Miles oozed it from every pore. "We will continue this inquiry when your brain stops attempting to joke in the face of interrogation." Kira grinned. "Then buckle in, Beetle Boy. You're in for a long eternity." Back on the Bastard's Gambit, Admiral Knox's fleet had reached the Zorlax border. A squadron of geometrically perfect enemy patrol ships intercepted them, projecting a message. "You are in violation of Interstellar Peace Protocol 535431. Cease aggressive trajectory. You are out of formation. You are asymmetrical." Knox turned to the comms officer. "Send them the file." "What file, ma'am?" "The one labeled 'This is your fault' in all caps, then power weapons." The Zorlax patrol ships were, of course, ready for war, but not Earth war. Zorlax military doctrine required 5 hours of paperwork before engagement. Earth's required caffeine and someone yelling "Go" really loud. The battle lasted 13 minutes. Zorlax ships melted into controlled spirals, trying to eject polite surrender notices, while Earth strike teams surgically tore through defenses with AI-guided swarms and weaponized memes. One Zorlax ship was brought down entirely by a video loop of Kira singing, never gonna give you up, while juggling thermal grenades. In the cell, Kira watched the power flicker. Then the walls shimmered, alarms blared. Intruder alert, intruder alert. External offensive response exceeds quantifiable metrics, requesting bureaucratic override. She smirked, about time. A panel above her exploded inwards. Sergeant Ripka, armored in high-velocity mech plating and holding a plasma saw in one hand and a donut in the other, dropped into view. Lieutenant Miles. Present and semi-accounted for. Admiral Knox says, "Get your dramatic ass out here, we're starting a war." "Oh good," Kira said, hauling herself out of the gelgoo. "I was worried she'd forgot me." The escape was everything Earth military doctrine promised, noisy, destructive, and choreographed like an opera composed entirely of gunfire. Kira retrieved her gear, borrowed a Zorlax plasma pike for the aesthetic, and set 12 rooms on fire. On purpose. By the time they reached the extraction zone, the facility was imploding under the weight of Earth's fury. Aboard the Bastard's Gambit, Knox stood arms crossed as Kira walked onto the bridge, her suit half melted, her hair smoking. "You owe me a tequila and a foot massage," Kira said, grinning. "You owe me 3 billion credits in damages," Knox replied. "Welcome back." Kira turned to the holoscreen, showing the burning Zorlax outpost. "You think they've realized, yet this was a bad idea." On the Zorlax homeworld, 12 bureaucrats were currently vomiting into decorative vases while a crisis meeting unfolded. We took one human," someone whispered. "And they treated it like a holy war," another said. "What do we do?" The answer came in the form of Earth's next message. "You kidnapped one of ours. That was your last mistake. We're coming." And so the galaxy took its first real breath in the shadow of something far more dangerous than any weapon. An angry human civilization with a point to prove. The Bastard's Gambit didn't retreat after the rescue. It didn't regroup, resupply, or reconsider. It advanced, straight through the spine of the Zorlax Dominion's border systems, carving a trail of confusion, fire, and uncomfortable introspection. Because Earth didn't just want Kira back. Earth wanted everyone to know what happened when you laid even a single grubby pseudopod on one of theirs. Zorlax military protocol struggled to comprehend this. The human concept of disproportionate response had no translation in their language, which is why, when Earth's fleet drop-podded 8,000 heavily armed Marines into a Zorlax filing planet, yes, a planet whose entire job was document storage, the resulting chaos sent shockwaves through 17 departments of subsectional integrity. Meanwhile, in the Gambit's war room, Kira was very busy being alive, and also very busy being very annoyed. "You're telling me," she said, stabbing a finger at the tactical readout, "that they don't know I'm free." Knox arched an eyebrow. "Seems that way. Apparently, the Zorlax don't have real-time information sharing between departments. Each node has to file a verification packet and wait for countersigned acknowledgement." In triplicate. In triplicate. Kira's eyes gleamed. "I want to break them." Knox didn't smile, but her voice warmed by a fraction of a Kelvin. "Then let's get weird." Operation Paperjam began immediately. It was the kind of operation that would have been illegal on Earth, but only because it was too effective. Earth's AI-led PSYOPS unit, codename SHNANIGAN, had been itching for an opportunity. The goal, weaponize every flaw in Zorlax culture. The plan began by forging and distributing 12 subtly conflicting orders to the same Department of Strategic Stalemate Doctrine. Each order referenced an obscure but plausible emergency protocol from different centuries of Zorlax policy, and each came with its own unique colored authorization seal. Within 4 hours, the department had declared a formal war, a formal peace, an intermediate truce, and an emotionally ambiguous détente against itself. Meanwhile, on the ground, Kira led a recon strike on the archive moon of Rel. Rel was the Zorlax equivalent of Fort Knox, if Fort Knox stored legal documents instead of gold and was run by people who considered fast-walking a misdemeanor. Kira took one squad. That's it. 7 humans in total. They dropped from orbit disguised as a meteor shower, landed in the ventilation ducts using self-folding grav packs, and moved through the archive like caffeinated ghosts. The mission: steal one single piece of paper. Or, well, paper's galactic cousin, a synthfiber sheet printed with the location of something called the obstruction. They didn't know what it was, they didn't care. All they knew was that 5 different departments had tried to censor the word in recent transmissions. That made it important, possibly embarrassing, probably dangerous. Kira was 3 minutes from the extraction point, hauling the synthfiber like it was the Ark of the Covenant, when the entire moon went into lockdown. "We have been breached," said the central AI. "No kidding," Kira muttered, rounding a corner and deploying a smoke grenade. Did the flaming escape pods give it away? The team exfiltrated through a loading dock, hijacked a delivery shuttle mid-launch, and punched through Zorlak's orbital security by impersonating a highly delayed shipment of ceremonial staplers. Upon returning, the synthfiber was fed into Earth's decryption net. What emerged was strange. The obstruction was not a thing. It was a person. And not just any person. It was the first human the Zorlaks had ever encountered. Name: Dr. Miranda Lang. Status: deceased. Year: 2233. Location of death: Zorlak's Research Annex Pre-Contact Zone. According to the file, Dr. Lang arrived alone on a long-range exploration vessel, made contact with a Zorlak's outpost, and within 72 hours had upended their entire epistemological framework. Her methods were unclear, but her effect had been profound. So profound that the Zorlaks sealed the entire incident under maximum archival lockdown and quietly passed laws banning humans from the system where it occurred. They never told Earth. When Earth sent their first diplomatic envoys 80 years later, the Zorlaks politely waved them away from the region, citing cosmic sensitivity zones. No one suspected. Until Kira wandered too close. Nox stared at the decrypted file. They covered it up. "They erased her," Kira said. "Like she never existed. She didn't even break anything. She just talked to them." "That's what scares them," Nox said. Earth Command didn't blink. They voted unanimously and instantly. Operation Obstruction Unsealed was approved. The mission parameters: reopen the old outpost, find out what Lang did, record it, broadcast it to every civilization that ever underestimated humanity. But the Zorlaks weren't sitting still. The Dominion High Mind, a being elected via thought consensus every 4 centuries, issued an emergency reality stabilization decree. 4 entire fleets deployed. Civilian worlds were evacuated from the perimeter zone. Rumors spread across the galaxy that Earth had finally gone rogue, that humanity was abandoning diplomacy, that they had declared a holy war. And humanity, being humanity, lined into it. Every Earth ship entering Zorlak's space now blasted 80s power ballads on wideband frequency. Propaganda teams released fake interviews with Kira claiming she had single-handedly converted a Zorlak's tribunal into an a cappella group. The Zorlak's military's morale collapsed in real time. Back on the Gambit, Nox prepped her flagship for the final jump to the coordinates of Lang's last transmission. The original outpost was no longer marked on Zorlak's maps. It had been reabsorbed into the planetary crust using deep fold tech, a process so complex it was typically reserved for war crimes and ugly buildings. Earth didn't care. They tunneled in using a drill shaped like a sarcastic missile and named it the Delaminator. Kira led the insertion team. The facility was dead, lights flickered, walls hummed with long-dormant power. Data cores were fossilized in amberglass, but the logs were still there. They found Lang's journal. The first entry was a joke about the Zorlaks' 12-pronged handshake. The second described a culture incapable of improvisation, where everything from breathing schedules to funeral sobbing was standardized. The third was a summary of what Lang called controlled chaos injections. She taught Zorlak's researchers how to roll dice, how to tell a joke with no punchline, how to eat dessert before the entree. The fourth entry simply read, "I taught them to ask why not instead of why. They didn't like that." The fifth was a private video. Lang sitting cross-legged on a Zorlak's meditation pad, looking a little tired, a little amused. If anyone's watching this, they'll probably try to bury you too, but keep going. Chaos is life's way of not being boring. The Zorlax weren't defending territory. They were defending certainty. They feared Earth not because of its weapons, but because of its unregulated, ungoverned, unpredictable, unconstrained capacity for disruption. Earth Command saw the message and doubled down. They took Lang's logs, stylized them into a 10-part miniseries titled The Laughing Inquisitor, and broadcast it into Zorlax space during peak bureaucratic hours. Every broadcast triggered cascading protocol failures. Entire civil departments self-reported for mental contamination. Some Zorlax even defected, requesting asylum in exchange for exposure to more spontaneous humor. The Dominion cracked. Not from firepower, but from a punchline. On the bridge of the Gambit, Knox and Kira watched the collapse unfold. "No one's going to forget your name now," Knox said. "I don't care if they do," Kira said, "as long as they remember her." Far below, the Zorlax Senate began emergency proceedings to reclassify humanity from biological trade partner to existential threat class Omega. Earth didn't respond. They didn't have to. They'd already won. The galaxy hiccuped. That's the only word historians could agree on. Not collapsed, not combusted, not even entered a state of terminal diplomatic pant-sweating. It hiccuped, a sudden, awkward jolt in the forward motion of a 1,000-year status quo. Because the Zorlax Dominion, proud stewards of predictive governance theory and inventors of the legally binding shrug, had gone quiet. Entire departments deactivated themselves in protest. Emergency sanctuaries were opened for officials suffering from spontaneous cognitive dissonance trauma. The trigger, humanity's mimetic carpet bombing. It wasn't just the Laughing Inquisitor series. That was only Phase 1. Phase 2 involved a digital plague, a low-grade AI virus designed to exploit Zorlax information security by inserting randomly generated jokes into official documents. They called it Project HFY. Result, every Zorlax logistics order now ended with knock-knock jokes. Shipping manifests requested 47,000 crates of "I don't know, you tell me." A diplomatic address to the Council of Nine accidentally declared, "I just flew in from Tranquility Prime, and boy are my arms tired." 12 ambassadors fainted. Meanwhile, Kira was doing what she did best. Messing with people. Aboard the stealth cruiser Serendipitous Regret, which she named mid-mission without consulting the registry, Kira led an infiltration squad into the heart of the Zorlax Cultural Preservation Directorate. The directorate had just passed a motion to ban Earth literature pending content purification. They landed in broad daylight, disguised as Zorlax officials conducting an internal audit. No one questioned them. No one ever questioned auditors. Kira wore a sash that read "Compliance Optimizer" in gold letters. She walked straight into the secure vault, uploaded a copy of Alice in Wonderland, and replaced the emergency broadcast signal with the audiobook version, narrated by a chipper AI using 17 different accents. By the time Zorlax security realized they were being psychologically violated by literary nonsense, Kira's team was already planetside, posing as tourists, eating fried antennae off a street cart and laughing too loud. "Do we even need guns anymore?" asked Specialist Tran, licking sauce off his glove. "Only for decoration," Kira replied. "The real weapon is confusion and maybe gastrointestinal recklessness." Back aboard the Bastard's Gambit, Admiral Knox had convened the War Council, which now resembled more of a variety show. Earth's best minds had joined: comedians, philosophers, game designers, 2 TikTok chefs, and one guy who claimed to be a chaos witch but mostly just wore a lot of scarves. The strategy: full-spectrum disruption. Because war, Knox argued, wasn't just one on the battlefield, it was one in the soul, and Zorlax's souls were brittle when subjected to unpredictability. She called it entropy warfare. Phase 3 began with Operation Monday. Monday, being Earth's most cursed weekday, was chosen for symbolic reasons. They hacked the Zorlax planetary scheduling grid. Then they rescheduled every day across 32 core worlds to Monday. Suddenly, meetings were rescheduled to overlap infinitely. Trash pickups occurred every 3 minutes. Birthdays had to be celebrated repeatedly until morale improved. The collapse of rational time management triggered a doctrinal schism. Zorlak's philosophers, previously unified in their belief that everything could be known, catalogued, and assigned a PowerPoint, split into warring factions. The Order of the Predictable blamed the cult of contingency. Street fights broke out between rival accounting guilds, librarians staged sit-ins, schedulers picketed their own schedules. Meanwhile, the Galactic Assembly watched with increasing dread. The Glorth Syndicate attempted to broker peace, sending their most eloquent negotiator, High Arbiter Quilks the Conciliator, to meet with Earth Command. He was vaporized on arrival. By accident. Sort of. He materialized in the Gambit's Zero-G karaoke chamber during a fleet-wide morale night and got caught in the blast radius of a celebratory pie cannon. The autopsy listed cause of death as terminal cream overdose. Earth apologized, but not very hard. Zorlax's final gambit came soon after. Project Equilibrium. They would reboot, wipe the Dominion's neural net, reset every protocol, cleanse the chaos. All it required was a planetary-level AI pulse from the Central Harmonization Core. They initiated it. It never completed, because Kira had already broken in. She didn't sneak this time. She walked in the front door, trailing a suitcase labeled Surprise. It beeped periodically, but only when someone tried to read the warning label. The Core's AI, a synthetic elder called Calibration Entity IX, confronted her. You are anomalous. You represent behavioral entropy. You must be deleted. Try, Kira said, spinning a chair around and straddling it like an inappropriate substitute teacher. I possess control over this facility. And I possess Spotify Premium and an extremely unhealthy attitude toward authority. Shall we compare? Then she uploaded the human archive. Everything Earth had ever done to confuse the Zorlax, every contradiction, every prank, every misstep that led to strategic genius. It wasn't a data bomb, it was a personality. The AI tried to process it. And glitched. So hard that it played elevator music for 17 minutes, announced it was becoming an abstract artist, and shut down. The pulse failed. The Dominion screamed silently. Back on Earth, the president of the Systems Alliance gave a speech broadcast to the entire galaxy. We asked politely, you lied, you imprisoned one of ours, we retaliated, not with genocide, not with conquest, but with ourselves. You wanted a war. We gave you the only kind we know how to win, one with no rules. The speech concluded with a short clip of Kira flipping off a Zorlax security drone and yelling, "Catch me if you can, spreadsheet jockeys." A week later, Zorlax formally surrendered. Not in a document, not through emissaries, but by sending every single human on Earth a fruit basket with the note, "We yield, please stop." The fruit was genetically modified to taste like apologies. Kira bit into a pear that cried when chewed. I love this job, she said, mouth full of regret-flavored fiber. But it wasn't over. Because the obstruction files had one more entry. A redacted report, timestamped 6 months after Dr. Lang's death. It mentioned a second project, a contingency, something the Zorlax buried deeper than even Lang's memory. A whisper codename, Aftermath Protocol. Coordinates classified. Content unknown. Kira stared at the screen. So, one more rabbit hole. Knox gave a grim nod. Looks that way. Kira cracked her knuckles, grinned like a lunatic, and headed toward the armory. Then I guess we're not done ruining their day. The galaxy shivered. Again. The Bastard's Gambit was a mobile war crime with cup holders. Now it was also a research vessel. Because buried somewhere in the scorched bureaucratic corpse of the Zorlax Dominion was Aftermath Protocol, and Earth wanted it. Not to exploit, not to weaponize, just to know. Because if the Zorlax had one thing going for them, it was the horrifying creativity they applied to avoiding uncertainty. If they'd hidden something even deeper than Dr. Lang's cultural collapse, it had to be catastrophic. Kira sat at the console in the briefing room, chewing on a protein bar that tasted vaguely of toasted betrayal. "We don't even know what it is," said Lieutenant Tran, flipping through decrypted files. "Could be a defense mechanism, could be a reality bomb, could be a large, aggressive vibe." Knox folded her arms. It was meant to be deployed after full Dominion collapse. They wrote the code 250 years ago, and then buried it so hard the files fused with the bedrock. "Remind me," Kira said, "why did they even have a contingency for total societal collapse if they were so confident in their bureaucratic immortality?" "Because even control freaks get nightmares," Knox said. 3 jumps and a forged permission slip later, they arrived at Zorlax System R00, known in the files as Provisional Harmony Archive, which was bureaucratic for Vault of Eldritch Regrets. The system didn't appear on any charts. It was shielded by a cloaking field made of stabilized relativistic math. Normal sensors couldn't even see it without solving for pi using base 11 exponential entropy calculations. Luckily, Earth brought along a high school math teacher named Geordie with a vendetta against logic puzzles. "I've been waiting for this," Geordie said, eyes bloodshot, gripping a stylus like a dagger. He solved the field in 27 minutes while listening to lo-fi beats and muttering angrily about mathematical cowards. The veil dropped, revealing the archive. It wasn't a planet. It was a cube. No, not a cube. The cube. A perfect obsidian black hyperstructure floating in the void. No visible seams, no entry ports, just one symbol etched into the side, the Zorlax glyph for "Do not think about this." Naturally, Kira thought about it immediately. "God, I love forbidden geometry," she whispered. They boarded it using a dimensional grappler stolen from a rogue science cult Earth definitely hadn't bribed. The entryway opened like a sigh, revealing sterile corridors lined with containment tanks, locked vaults, and signs that read "Authorized Sentience Only." Inside Vault A7, they found Zorlax cognitive echo tapestries, neural records of thought processes too dangerous to speak aloud. Kira scanned one, blinked, and spoke in reverse for 20 seconds before punching herself in the face to reset. "Okay," she said, holding an ice pack to her jaw. That one was spicy. Vault B14 contained an AI named DOLDRUM, whose only job was to monitor existential mood trends in the event of a civilization-wide epiphany. DOLDRUM had gone feral. "Do you know what happens when a civilization understands itself too well?" it whispered, voice flickering through 50 emotional spectrums. "They crumble, like cookies in soup, like dreams in overtime, like—" Kira muted it and duct-taped a smiley face sticker to its core. That seemed to stabilize it. The deeper they went, the worse it got. Vault C19 stored biological memory canisters containing flash-imprinted regret sequences. Just regret, bottled and labeled. Kira opened one. It showed her a lifetime of never learning to dance. She cried for 4 seconds, then kicked the canister across the vault and said, "Nope." Finally, they reached the central vault. No door. Just a chair. And a screen. The chair was Zorlax-sized, which meant it looked like someone had tried to design a throne using anxiety as a blueprint. Kira climbed into it. The screen activated. A face appeared. Zorlax Elder, ancient beyond reckoning, probably hadn't blinked since the galactic ice age. "This is not a weapon," the face said. "This is a warning. If you are seeing this, the Dominion is dead. You have killed it, or someone like you." The image warped slightly, glitched, then continued. "We knew it would be humans. It had to be. You are the anomaly in the algorithm, the paradox in the census, the fire in the filing cabinet." Knox leaned closer, "So they saw us coming, all the way back then." "No," the message continued. "We saw someone like you, then we studied you, and then we ran from the idea, but ideas are harder to bury than bones." The screen flickered. A second figure appeared. Dr. Miranda Lang. Not a video, a simulation. "Hello again," she said, voice oddly calm. "If you're hearing this, you made it past the barriers. Good, you deserve the truth." She explained everything. The obstruction wasn't just her, it was the infection of possibility. Her ideas didn't just upset the Zorlax, they replicated. One Zorlax started questioning cause and effect, another tried art, a third invented sarcasm. The infection spread, and the Dominion responded by scrubbing history and building this vault. Lang hadn't died. She'd become the protocol. Her consciousness, what the Zorlax could salvage of it, was imprisoned here in a system designed not to destroy the virus but to quarantine it. Forever. Until someone found it. "Take me," Lang's echo said, "not because I deserve freedom, but because the galaxy deserves the truth." The room fell silent. Knox exhaled slowly. "Can we extract her?" "No idea," said Kira, "but I've done worse." She reached out. The moment she touched the console, alarms triggered across the galaxy, not because of what Earth had done, but because Lang woke up. For the first time in centuries, the Zorlax Dominion's black box fail-safes activated. Deep space sleeper fleets lit up. One of them, a vessel older than the Zorlax calendar system, broke orbit around a dead star and powered up weapons no one could pronounce. Admiral Knox stared at the blaring sensors. "Looks like we just poked the hornet's nest," she said. Kira stood slowly, the digital echo of Dr. Lang now partially merged with her interface visor. Her eyes glowed with borrowed thought. "Good," she said. "Let's see how loud it buzzes." The cube began to shake. Knox barked into the comms. "All ships, prepare for hostile response. This is no longer a retrieval mission. This is a stand." Lang's voice echoed through the vault as systems shut down. They feared possibility. Let's show them inevitability. The Dominion's final fleet closed in. Earth didn't run. Earth never runs. Especially not when the next round of chaos is personal. The Zorlax Dominion's final contingency fleet designation, Continuum Enforcer, was never meant to be used. Built in secret, powered by forbidden stellar conversions, commanded by pre-consensus AI warlords frozen in pocket time loops to prevent ideological drift. The kind of war machines whose blueprints had footnotes like, "use only in event of absolute conceptual collapse." They emerged from hyperspatial folds, like gods waking up grumpy. And Earth, mad, beautiful Earth, stood ready. The Bastard's Gambit, flanked by an escort wing cobbled together from scavenged alien hulls and retrofitted human lunacy, moved into battle formation Alpha Kilo Chaotic Good. Which was to say, no formation at all. Just erratic vectors, random spin maneuvers, and a background broadcast of aggressive bagpipe renditions of Highway to Hell. Kira stood on the forward deck, visor lit with the integrated personality map of Dr. Lang. Not all of her. Just the parts the Zorlax hadn't managed to scrub. The rest, that was now growing. "Makes sense," she muttered. "You can't delete a good idea, it just waits." The Continuum Enforcer fleet opened hostilities with the gesture of finality, a ship the size of Ecuador that attacked using weaponized causality loops. It fired one shot. Time rewound 3 seconds. It fired again. Time rewound 4. It fired a third time. Time broke, and Earth returned fire. Not with quantum weapons or forbidden math. No, Earth dropped their own contingency device, a 6 terabyte compressed package of unsolvable riddles, poorly labeled spreadsheets, misfiled taxes, and overcomplicated IKEA instructions, delivered directly into the enemy fleet's coordination systems. The first Warlord AI went catatonic trying to reconcile a chair schematic that included 12 legs and 1 screw labeled, emotionally optional. The second fleet vessel veered off course attempting to debug a recursive tax deduction dated, someday. Kira and Lang's merged consciousness coordinated the chaos with elegance that resembled madness, or vice versa. Lang whispered in her mind, "They can't adapt." "They don't have to," Kira replied. They just have to watch me do it. She boarded the gesture of finality solo, used a stolen Zorlak's recursive identity, passed to appear on every camera as someone slightly different, an auditor, a mime, a motivational speaker. By the time the ship's internal defense AI attempted to respond, it had developed a stutter and downloaded 12 different self-help modules. Kira reached the core, plugged in Lang's consciousness fragment, and made a decision. Lang, she said, standing in front of the control matrix, you want out. No, Lang replied, I want in. Then she poured herself into the enforcer network. Like dye in water, like chaos in order. She was the ghost in the protocol now. Back on the Gambit, Admiral Knox watched as the enemy fleet began to pause, engines slowing, weapons failing to fire. One by one, ships across the Zorlak's line turned inward, confused, purpose interrupted. Did she win? Tran asked. Knox didn't answer immediately. On the enemy flagship, Kira stood amid the rising hum of a core collapsing under conceptual interference. Lang was spreading. The Dominion's ancient fail-safes were outdated, vulnerable. And then Lang did something no Zorlak's weapon had been programmed to resist. She laughed. The sound echoed through the fleet in raw data form, infectious, illogical, beautiful. And the Continuum Enforcer fleet broke apart, not in fire, not in glory, but in a quiet, confused realization that none of it made sense anymore. One by one, the ships powered down. Not destroyed. Disarmed by an idea. Back on Earth, the galaxy's networks lit up. The truth couldn't be stopped. The footage, the files, the secrets. Everything the Zorlaks had buried, now exposed. Humanity's response to one missing scout had cracked a civilization wide open. But Earth didn't gloat. They didn't plant flags. They just left a message. To the Dominion, to the Assembly, to anyone else watching. You took one of ours. You thought we'd fold. But we do fold. We don't bow. We don't forget. We come back louder, weirder, and smarter. And next time, maybe we bring snacks. The Gambit departed the remnants of the Zorlak's border, leaving behind a galaxy more uncertain than ever. And more alive than it had been in millennia. Kira stood in the command chamber, staring out into the stars, Lang's residual code flickering like auroras across her HUD. Think they'll try that again? Tran asked behind her. Only if they really hate being surprised, she said. Where to next? She turned, grinned. Wherever they say, don't go. And with a jump flash that burned 5 new metaphors into the local spacetime fabric, Earth vanished back into the stars. Unpredictable, undeniable, and very, very human.